Le'Veon Bell is making the mistake of his career, and I want to give you a reason that I hear very few pundits talking about. How you doing, everybody? Are you as wrapped up in this Le'Veon situation as me? It's been an interesting ride, hasn't it? First and foremost, is anyone looking out for Le'Veon? That is my contention. We can have a financial argument, and I'm already going to say it's a stalemate. I've listened to Fox Sports, I've listened to ESPN, we've heard financial analysts, we've heard agents, we've heard arguments for, against, pros, cons. Guys, stalemate. You can tell me it makes sense, you can make a salient point why it doesn't make sense, but what I contend is anybody truly looking out for the competitor, not the businessman, Le'Veon Bell? And I just wonder if he has been given some of the worst guidance and advice a young competitor could possibly be given. I want to throw some names at you guys. Here's some names: LaDainian Tomlinson, Dan Marino, Barry Sanders, Tony Gonzalez, Randy Moss, Dick Butkus. You know what I'm getting at. Feel free to leave more names in the comment box that match that pattern. Yes, those are some of the greatest players to have ever played the game that didn't win a Super Bowl. All right, let us not forget that with the competitor and Le'Veon Bell. What does that teach us? What have we learned? We learned that snaps in the NFL are fleeting. They are coveted, and there's a reason why it's been called the NFL not for long league. You never know when that next snap could be your last. And I know that's been a reason used for why Le'Veon needs to protect himself financially. But again, what about Le'Veon, the competitor? What is Le'Veon leaving on the table? This is a very special Pittsburgh Steelers team that Le'Veon Bell has been a part of, and I think most of us agreed. Most of us thought for sure, even after making his big stand and missing camp, missing the first half of the season, Le'Veon Bell would return to this very special first place contending group for a shot to go win the big one in 2018. Le'Veon Bell is not doing that. And guys, here's what I want to talk about financially. There's studies that show after you make $75,000, the relation between happiness and money comes with big-time diminishing returns. So consider that Le'Veon Bell is already worth $10 million. All right, we know he's going to get paid down the line. He left $14 million on the table this year, but there's a reason why the cliche money isn't everything holds true. Let's fast forward maybe 30 years from now. Maybe Le'Veon Bell's sitting back and maybe he's worth $80 million, $100 million instead of $60 million. Okay, is it really going to make that much of a difference in his life? Is his goal to be Warren Buffett? I don't think he's ever going to get there. But will he get to what all players aspire to get to? And that is the grand stage that is the Super Bowl. Read the testimony of guys like Jerome Bettis, Hines Ward, Peyton Manning, all multimillionaires. They look back at the greatest moments of their career coming at the Super Bowl. I'm going to make a bold prediction for you. I do think Le'Veon Bell will get the money. I don't think he'll go to a contender. This may be the closest Le'Veon Bell ever comes. Who knows? I think that he'll go to a solid middle-of-the-road team, but we know he's not going to go to somebody like the Patriots. Bill Belichick's not going to spend that kind of money because it's a team sport and everybody's got the same objective, and that is to win a Super Bowl. Players understand finances. Okay, we understand you want to maximize your value, but how much of this is bad advice from an agent and ego? How much of this is Le'Veon Bell not liking that his contemporary Antonio Brown has $30 million in the bank and he only has $10 million in the bank? But again, what's that going to matter when we get to the end of the line? The agent certainly won't care. He's not the one that's going to miss out on an opportunity to hoist a Lombardi, hoist an MVP trophy, get showered in confetti, be on worldwide television, the greatest mass media event that still exists today, the Super Bowl. What is Le'Veon Bell, the competitor, the man who has strived and worked so hard for this his entire life, leaving on the table? Not Le'Veon Bell, the businessman. As I said, that's a whole different argument that there's plenty of videos online for and against. I haven't heard anybody talk about what he is possibly missing right now in his career. Money aside, talk to Dan Marino, talk to Barry Sanders. What's the biggest void in their career? They've got plenty of riches, plenty of wealth. They can go open up restaurants, bars. They can play the memorabilia scene, the autograph scene. There's a million different things you can do. but you can't buy a Super Bowl appearance. You can't buy a Super Bowl victory. And we'll always wonder what could have been. What did Le'Veon Bell, the competitor, not the businessman, truly relinquish in 2018? That's a question, guys. And I also want to say this about Le'Veon Bell and his value and his perceived value. There's a lot of people on Le'Veon's side. Is he worth more? Yeah, sure. The stats dictate that he's worth more. He's the greatest running back in the league right now. It's amazing what he's been able to do. However, that position only pays so much in the National Football League. Let's put on our GM hat. Let's put on our owner's hat. All right? There's a reason why franchise quarterbacks are paid so much. We have stats and analytics to back up why that is. If you look at the last 20, 25 years, more than 80% of the Super Bowls have been won by what you would consider a franchise quarterback. The Mannings, the Brees, Rodgers, Roethlisberger, the list goes on, guys. Brady, let's not forget Brady. He's got a lot of them in there, doesn't he? You can win without. There's a few exceptions. Baltimore fans know that, but by and large, that's why that position is so valuable. Receiver, not quite as valuable, but valuable. The running back position, what have we learned? What have we learned? What has James Conner taught us this year? With a good offensive line, with a talented young man, you can make up a void. No one's saying that James Conner is Le'Veon Bell, but look at the production. Denver, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, built their reputation on next man up. We got a great offensive line, just plug in running backs. So I understand Le'Veon's plight, but he has to understand his position in the league as well. He wants wide receiver money and running back money combined. That's not going to be feasible for a whole lot of teams, especially a contender. Remember, guys, we got cap space issue. I've heard so many say, oh, pay the man, he's worth this. So what happens when you pay him and you don't have enough money for your defense? You don't have enough money for special teams. You don't have enough money for weapons. And speaking of all that, this is a special group that Le'Veon Bell is foregoing. They call it the Killer Bees in Pittsburgh. You got Ben Roethlisberger. You got Antonio Brown. Le'Veon when he was there. Juju Smith-Schuster is in that mix as an incredible weapon. One of the best offensive lines in football. An improving defense. A great coaching staff. It's all there. It's all there for Le'Veon Bell. And what has history taught the Steelers? When you look at a guy like Mike Wallace, who was the best at his position a few years ago. He wanted the big money. He left a contender. He left a great situation. He got paid. Congratulations, Mike Wallace. He went to the Miami Dolphins. He didn't sniff a contender again. So I'd love to talk to Mike Wallace right now and know, how much would you give for a Super Bowl appearance? A shot at being Super Bowl MVP, a shot at winning with your team, something that nobody can ever take away from you. $5 million, $10 million? What's that worth? What is that worth? And I really don't understand the taking the wear and tear off the body. Okay, yeah, it sounds good at first, but let's be honest, guys, and a sports psychologist will tell you this, that if you're thinking about getting hurt, your chances of getting hurt dramatically increase. And it could be any play. Le'Veon Bell could sit out this whole season, sign that big contract, and the first snap next year could have suffered a career-ending injury. We certainly hope that's not the case, but that is the nature of the NFL. I think most players would tell you when they have the opportunity to go after a Super Bowl, to go after it with a good team, it's worth the risk. It's certainly worth the risk. Again, this is Le'Veon the competitor, not Le'Veon the business. And I just wonder how much the agent truly cares and thinks about this. Is the agent manipulating and using Bell for his own purpose? Look at what happened today. Le'Veon Bell was in Florida. He flew to Pittsburgh. Was it a last-minute call by his agent? Is his agent trying to push his own agenda? Is anyone looking out for Le'Veon Bell, the competitor? I would love some of these veterans to talk to Le'Veon Bell. What is he doing? Came into this season with a $12 million net worth. Left 14.5 on the table. He disagrees with the system. Fine, those are the roles. Go out and play. Take your shot. And then next year, sign the big contract. And even if you were going to make the big grandstand that you did, why not come back mid-season? People say the Steelers wouldn't accept them back. I challenge that. They certainly would. It might be a rough start, but a great sports writer once said, winning has more to do with team chemistry than anything. And I believe when Le'Veon comes back and starts pounding out those yards and works in tandem with James Conner and they win a few big games and they make a run, all those sins would have been forgotten. And now we just wonder. We wonder what could have been. And I just wonder if Le'Veon is thinking the same thing. Remember, guys, when we assess worth, when you assess the big contract, something that Le'Veon's agent needs to consider, when you really, really, truly figure out what you're worth in the National Football League, how many Super Bowls have the Steelers won with Le'Veon Bell? And I'm not attacking Bell because it wasn't all his fault, but when you want that kind of money, GMs, fan bases, coaches, they all want Super Bowls, and that's what you pay for. And I can think back to a postseason where Le'Veon wasn't very effective at key times, especially in New England. You can blame it on injury. You can blame it on lack of reps during the years that he was suspended. He's had off-the-field issues. That's played into this. But now he had a chance to wipe it all away and be the highest paid running back by far in the league. $14.5 million. I just wonder how much of this is ego, pride, and bad advice. Every single one of these NFL competitors, there's a little boy inside of them who wants nothing more than to win, than to go out and win the Super Bowl. It's everybody's dream. You only get so many opportunities. Did Le'Veon squander an opportunity this year? Remember last year, the Jesse James catch that the Steelers will talk about, or lack thereof, it was an incomplete pass, even though it looked like a catch, called correctly by the refs. But let's just say this is a good example, a good paradigm, if you will, of how a season can be greatly changed by one play. Jesse James holds on to that ball. It's a touchdown. The Steelers are now the #1 seed. The playoff dynamic totally changes. The road to the Super Bowl goes through Pittsburgh. Jacksonville would have been matched up with New England earlier. Who knows? Woulda, coulda, shoulda. It's just another thing that we'll always wonder about. But my point is, let's talk about this year. If Le'Veon rolled up his sleeves and went to work, the Steelers started 1-2-1. We know with Le'Veon Bell, they would have undoubtedly beat Cleveland first game of the year. They may have beat Baltimore, or at least been in contention during the game where they only put up 19 rushing yards. May have even beaten a very good Kansas City team, who they lost to by a very slim margin at home. We'll never know. All of these games could play a factor into what eventually becomes the story of this year's Super Bowl champion. Guys, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to consider. Again, financial argument, we can have it all day. His worth, we can have it all day. I just simply ask this, and I don't think there's a lot of people talking about it. Who's looking out for Le'Veon Bell, the competitor? The guy that's already made $10 million, the guy that will make millions more, but the guy that may be walking away from a very special situation, something that maybe could haunt him for the rest of his life. And you wonder, does his support group, does his agent really have his best interest in mind? That's what I wonder. Is Le'Veon Bell wondering that? Maybe not right now. 20, 25 years, he may. And we can play this back. Mark my words, I don't think Le'Veon Bell wins the Super Bowl. I don't think he does. I don't think he goes to a contender. I think Le'Veon may be leaving the best shot he had. He'll get paid. Certainly wish him all the best. Don't wish any ill will on L. Bell, great player, a true amazing talent. But Le'Veon will always wonder what could have been. And I suspect so will you. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Please subscribe to this channel, especially if you like motorcycles and fast motorcycles. Feel free to leave your comments, disagree with me, come with your take, and we will watch how this one plays out. Thanks again.